Hi, this is Marcie Davis with Glasscaster. I'd always wanted to interview Lisa Vogt. She was the first artist I knew who made glass sinks, which were high on my bucket list at the time. She's been working glass since 1988 and has published 14 books and tons of articles. She is a great instructor, which I found out because I've had the privilege of producing quite a few glass expert webinars with her. And so we ran into each other recently at a glass event and finally got a chance to do this interview while hiding out in an echoey back room. And now I welcome Ms. Lisa Vogt. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing great, Marcie. Thanks for having me.
We always have a good time. How did you get involved in glass to begin with? When was that?
Oh, gosh. It was back in 1986. I was going to school for fine art. I was going to the University of South Florida, and I took a stained glass class at a little local store in Tampa, and I was in love. So the first night, they didn't want me to use a glass that had pattern. They didn't want me to make the seashell because it was too complicated. So I bought all the equipment, went home. I bought the more textured glass, which was a Ouroboros cat's paw. Took that home, and I had my project done the very first night.
Ouroboros cat's paw was pretty ambitious. You had never cut glass before?
No.
That was hard glass to cut. I mean, wasn't it? It's physically...
Yeah.
Like a white opalescent, physically a harder glass to cut, I always thought.
Yeah. At first I thought it was me, then I found that, oh my gosh, clear glass or plain blue or something, that's really, really easy. But I wasn't going to be deterred. I loved that glass. It had a really pretty texture to it, and it had a pink and white swirls. It was perfect for a seashell.
Mm-hmm. So your first, was this a panel then, a small panel?
Yeah, it was about a, I don't know, 8 by 10 kind of size, not real big.
Like a dozen pieces or something?
Yeah, like a coloring book kind of design.
I still have my first stained glass. I also learned it was 1979 at a craft shop in Miami. It was a sunset with the widest, sloppiest solder lines you ever saw.
Of course.
But I couldn't throw it out anyway. So, okay, it was love at first bite, basically.
Oh, yeah. Within 6 weeks, I had the side light, the long skinny window beside my door done. Within 3 months, I had a light box at the end of my hallway with a Bird of Paradise panel. My husband made this beautiful wooden light box with lights behind it. Within 6 months, I had my first commission. Within a year, I had my first store. A year later, I had a second store.
So you had 2
retail stores.
So was it mostly commission or stained glass supplies?
It was, the store ran on sales of supplies, commissions, and classes. And so we had all the supplies. Students would come in, they would register for a class, they'd buy the supplies for the class, and then we had beautiful window frontage, and in the windows we had these, different pieces of art I'd made, and, other people in the store had made, and people would see that and then want to commission a bathroom window or a front door or something.
So this was basically the age of the stained glass parrot, right, back then?
Oh, yeah. The heron.
The herons. Yeah.
I have made so many herons I could choke on a heron.
Sailboats,
dolphin, manatee, birds in water scenes with cattails, boats on the ocean. We've done a actual, one of those old-fashioned ships with all the big white sails for a ship captain. We made a gigantic schnauzer where the people brought the schnauzer in to model, and they wanted it in a 3 foot by 4 foot window where the schnauzer would be 24 inches tall. I was like, please, I can't give you a Amazonian schnauzer. Why don't we do a beautiful little oval, a cameo of your dog in the middle with, something like maybe some palm leaves or some colors, some colored border, something to, we can't do a 2.5 foot, 3 foot schnauzer.
Did you have more freestanding panels versus installed pieces, or?
In the store?
Well, I just mean in your business. What was bigger as an item?
Commission-wise, it was installed pieces, definitely.
Did you ever do commercial work, restaurants or churches or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a Charlie's Steakhouse in Tampa that has these really elaborate doors. I mean, tons and tons of jewels. We did doors for that business. We did windows for a steakhouse where like a Western steakhouse, and they wanted me to paint on glass. It was 12 inches by 36 inches. They wanted me to paint cowboys lassoing cows and chuck wagons and covered wagons, all in like a sepia tone kind of thing.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. Actually, that commission got me my oval kiln.
So this was my next question, which was, so when did we go from flat and cold to warm to hot? You know what? So it was this commission that did it?
Actually, before I opened my first retail store, I drove with a friend across the state to the supplier at the time, which was the Art Glass House. And I came home with an 18-inch octagon Olympic kiln. We had that on the back seat of her Buick. And brought it home. It just had a little pyrometer, and I fused a bunch of stuff in it in my garage. Before I opened my store, my studio was my garage. So I fused a bunch of stuff in it, and then I had the inevitable meltdown where all of a sudden, where I didn't wake up to the timer at 3 in the morning, and I woke up, my glass was puddled all over the kiln. The project was destroyed.
How about the kiln?
The kiln, luckily, was fine.
Okay.
So, but I put it aside for a while, and then we opened the stores, and then I was asked to do a commission of the Assumption of Mary. And the guy says, have you ever painted on glass? I said, of course I have. And of course I hadn't. So I get the commission, and it's 2 stories high, and he wanted every single piece to be hand painted. So every single piece in that window fit into that 18-inch kiln.
Oh my God.
Yes, so the clouds were all situated and painted in such a way that they fit in that kiln. And then when I got the job for the steakhouse, I was like, okay, well, I need a bigger kiln because the glass has to be 3 foot long. This is wonderful. I'll do the commission. Commission pays for the kiln, and I have the kiln still to use. And I still have the oval kiln, the octagon. When I closed my store, my husband thought we shouldn't take it. It has lived its life with us, but I kind of still miss it, you know. I don't miss the pyrometer, you know, just because it wasn't a digital controller.
Right.
Don't miss that.
But you didn't have a kiln sitter, though, at any point.
No.
You know, the little cone.
Yeah, no, I don't do cone.
Okay, so when did you notice the trend in glass shifting to where stained glass was no longer your meat and potatoes?
That would have been 1999 when Spectrum came out with System 96. And I was one of the first retail stores to bring the glass in and start introducing fusing classes. And so Spectrum had this wonderful publication called Score. It went out 4 times a year and had patterns in it. So I said to their marketing guy, you need to start putting some fusing patterns in there as well as stained glass patterns. He said, great, send us some. So that's kind of how I got aligned with them. And then I started, because I brought it into my store, they asked me to speak on their behalf at different organizations and shows and conventions, promoting why it was a good idea to bring fusing glass into your retail store or your wholesaler. And I actually got heckled by some people at one of the presentations, like, why would we want to, bring in a whole other product line? So my answer to them was, prior to that, what would drive a glass order, us to order 3 cases of 800 pounds of glass, prior to that was either being out of glue chip or being out of water glass. Well, at that time, what drove an order was being out of clear fusible. Because we were selling so much of it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So was it a personal, let's say, quest, like a Lisa Appleseed to try to get the message of fusing out to your stained glass audience, or was it just that the shift was already occurring and they just came to you,
Yeah, I was riding the wave, pretty much, yeah. I wasn't necessarily like a pioneer necessarily, but I certainly was enjoying myself, and when I'm enjoying myself with art, I love to share it. So that came naturally for me. I wasn't necessarily out there to purposely promote it and make it big. And actually, the reason I ended up being known as a fused glass artist primarily was because when I would go to different venues, I would offer 5 different classes. Well, one would be fusing, and it would sell out immediately. So then next time you add a second fusing class. And then the stained glass classes were kind of struggling. So you add a 3rd fused glass class. And then now I'm only known as a glass fuser, but that wasn't necessarily my intention, and it wasn't not my intention, it's just how it worked out.
So then give me a little bit as far as the timeline of your evolution as a fused glass artist.
Okay, so I started fusing back when I first, in like 87. Then I kind of dropped out of it until I got those 2 commissions, which were at separate times. And then when Spectrum came out with System 96, I started working with it a lot more, so that was about 99. And then I started really enjoying it and introducing it in classes at my store. I started trying to introduce it into my commission work. I introduced it into my pieces I made for my books. So I was doing stained glass books, but I would maybe put a fused glass fish in the middle of the coral reef scene, or I'd add a fused glass butterfly to the garden scene. So I was starting to incorporate it and do mixed media there. And now, about 10 years ago, we closed our retail stores because the market was hot. The building was sold out from under us. We couldn't afford to buy something new. And we had built in a community where my 5-year goal was to be a full-time studio artist working from the house. Well, it turned into a 3-year goal, which was fine. Actually, it's been wonderful. So now that I work for my private studio, I'm pretty much 100% fusing and very, very little stained glass or leaded glass.
So when I first heard your name, it was about fused glass sinks, and that was it really piqued my interest. I'm like, wow, because I love the idea, and I had seen in some of especially my house was destroyed by Hurricane Andrew, and so we had to rebuild a lot of stuff. And when I was looking for fixtures in my bathrooms and such, I saw these glass sinks. And I really, really wanted to make them. And as a matter of fact, we built a kiln. We called it Prometheus. It was, oh my God, it was like 3 feet by 8 feet or something. But it was built by Dad of Dad's kiln service. And he'd never built a kiln like this before. It was rectangular. He was more a ceramics kiln person. And we had to have 2 separate lids because they were made out of brick. It was so unbelievably heavy. It always cracked. We never got it to work right. So the architectural scale things like tables and the sinks, that kiln just never could do it. And finally we took it apart. But so when I saw the sinks and then I heard your name and knew that you had done a DVD on sinks, I was really, really fascinated. And so to that end, I was thrilled when we did a webinar with you making sinks, because then I got to find out how you did it, and it was very exciting. So do you want to talk a little bit about your emotional and physical and financial logistical relationship to sinks?
Sure. I don't really actually remember why I wanted to do sinks, but I will say something out loud like, I think I want to make a sink, and then 10 years later, gosh, I've made hundreds of them. So I'm not really sure what the original force was. Maybe it's because we were building a house at the time, but it was actually prior to that. Anyway, or maybe most likely it was because no one else was doing them. I do like to pioneer. So I decided I wanted to make sinks, and the learning curve was horrific. So I bought a big kiln just to do it. I bought the molds. I had to find molds. There were no molds available at the time. There was no firing schedule. So I basically had to come up with everything on my own. And actually, the first sink class that I taught, afterwards, I felt a little kind of sad. And I was like, I feel like I climbed Mount Everest one step at a time to learn how to make sinks. And I feel like these students arrived by helicopter because they just got it all handed to them.
Right.
But, I felt better about that later, and it was fine. And actually, I was very happy to help them because they had a brand new house. They had these beautiful sinks. So in making the sinks, I do 2 different techniques. I do a layered method and a cast method. Layered method's real easy. You cut 3 circles, you fuse them, you slump them, and you drill them. And actually, when you're drilling, you're grinding, not drilling, which takes a lot of emotional, mental stress out of it when you realize you're just grinding, because that's just gradually removing material. It's not sawing or cutting or vibrating. So I do a 3-layered method, and it's real easy and fun to make, and anybody can do it. The most intimidating thing is cutting the 19-inch circles, because you do lose a lot of glass if you break one. But you can also make patterns, and it doesn't have to be one big piece. And then for the cast method, I layer a bunch of material up to 3/4 of an inch thick, and then fuse that, and then slump that, and then drill it. That's a little more difficult to drill because it just takes more time, and a little scarier. But again, once you get that idea that you're grinding and not cutting or drilling, it's easier to approach it.
Well, I think that you've hit the nail on the head, because when I think about sinks, that's the first thing I think of is the drain. Oh my gosh, help, And you actually have some really cool, let's say, tips and tricks for making that less scary and simpler. And I look forward to the day when I actually do it. But you know what? We have young children in our lives and in our house and in the guest bathroom where I would put one of these. I think I'm going to have to wait a little while.
Well, I've had 3 in my house for 15 years without any breakage.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, I did not put them in my daughter's bathroom at the time because they were 5 and 10, and I was concerned they wouldn't be able to reach them. So that's because they come up off the countertop and they're a little more higher profile than, a ceramic basin. But I do have one in my guest room, and I actually spit my toothpaste in dichroic every day.
Oh my God.
And I love it.
What kind of toothpaste?
Gosh, I don't remember. It's Crest. Now we're getting really personal.
I know. I probably don't know you well enough, but I was thinking maybe Aquafresh because it has like 3 different colors. You can actually.
Well, there you go.
You could design with it.
There you go. I could spit in pattern.
Actually, have you ever lit the sinks from underneath or anything? Are they mostly translucent, transparent, or are they mostly opaque? What colors do you prefer for your sinks?
I've done all different types. I always like to have a little bit of transparency because I think that's what makes a glass sink different from ceramic or copper or stainless steel. So I do like to have some transparency, but I don't always. Like my bathroom sinks have a transparent rim, but the bottom is cyan, red, copper, gold tone dichroic with clear on top, so it has a lot of nice depth. And then the sink in our guest bathroom is transparent with pixie sticks dichroic. So you can see through, and the bottom color is blue, a deep blue. And so you can see through that and see the pretty pattern on the inside.
Would you ever, especially if someone was just starting out and didn't want to spend the dichro money, would you be able to have the bottom surface facing down would be a clear iridized so that the exposed, part that you would see could be an iridized clear? Would that give you the same effect?
Yeah, an iridized black makes a beautiful sink. Yeah. So yeah, any iridized would be fine. And you could even just use dichroic in little tiny bits. You can use it in a 1-inch band. You could use the 1-inch band.
My question is, would it ever be practical to have a sink that was lower than the surface of the vanity, let's say, that it was in, so it was slumped into it, and then you could have lighting that was underneath the vanity that would come up and backlight the sink so that it was sort of a glowing jewel?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. The trick to the sinks is you always have to make sure the sink is supported from the bottom in one way or another. So you don't ever want to install like a lollipop where it's supported by the drain pipe. So as long as the countertop is supporting the sink, whether it's directly under the bottom or out near the edge, is fine. And I have not lit one yet actually, but the one thing you'd have to address is the plumbing. You don't want to be putting a spotlight on your plumbing pipes.
Right.
So you'd want to light it in such a way or have glass in such a way that it was diffused, maybe where it would glow, but you wouldn't see these big, ugly gooseneck thing under the counter.
Right. So thank you for that. I just always thought that would be the coolest thing ever. Okay, so then you did a DVD about the sinks, and I don't know where that was in the timeline of your evolution. What came next?
That was in 2015. So the DVD, and I made the DVD because I was pretty much the only person doing it. It's really good information. I really like teaching. I like sharing it, and I thought it would be a way to. I teach a hands-on class with sinks, and I only take 4 students at a time, so it's cost prohibitive. It's in my studio, and so for the people who can't get here, it's the DVD where they can take it home, they can watch it. I've gotten response from people where they've watched it 3 or 4 times to gain the confidence to do it, and they really do gain the confidence to do it, and they are making sinks. They're making beautiful sinks. This one woman made a sink for her veterinarian's office with little cats and dogs around the rim. It was so cute. Another woman made one for her husband's automotive shop where it was black and white checkers, like the flags, with other red details, and it was very masculine looking, and that was beautiful. And I have a student whose husband does metal work. She made one, and her husband made this beautiful metal, and hers looked very watery. She lives in New Jersey near the ocean. And so her husband made a metal stand that looks like an octopus for it.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, so people have really taken it, and they've really, through the video, watching the video, be able to watch it multiple times and being able to, look at, study, really absorb the firing schedules. They're having good success with it.
And speaking of firing schedules, which I would assume are all important with something really thick like a sink, what about annealing? Because I think that the annealing would be really, is it very, 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 very long or just very long?
It's very long. And the way I extend the annealing is instead of just holding at 960 for a long period of time, I hold at like 1,000, I hold at 960, I hold at 800, I hold at 700. So I really extend and lengthen that annealing period to really let the glass cool down slowly. So I'm just holding at one temperature for 50 hours. I hold maybe 2 hours at each of those temperatures.
Is it 50 hours? No.
No, it's not even close. No. The entire firing is about 18. Yeah, and in my hands-on class, the glass goes in about 4 o'clock one day. It comes out around 4. It's about a 24-hour period turnover.
And if somebody was considering sinks in their future, besides, of course, either taking our webinar or buying your DVD, what kiln requirements might they need to consider?
Well, the sinks that I'm making are about 4 to 5 inches high and about 18 inches across. Now, so you can make different size sinks, but in order to make a sink that size, the molds are really, really large. So you'll need a kiln with a minimum of 24-inch by 24-inch interior and a minimum of a 13-inch interior depth, because otherwise the glass mold, the kiln slumping mold, will not fit.
And so for those who are listening, yes, it is true that the mold is much bigger than the resulting sink. So
yes.
That is something to consider, and that's why the size is as you just quoted it. And so then, after the sinks, now Lisa loves to...
Beyond sinks and still fusing?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I would like to really start doing more glass and metal combinations for wall art and freestanding pieces.
What about things like sconces and light fixtures?
No,
no,
that's too small. I want to do big. I want to do, actually I would like to do a series of benches that are big giant metal sculptures where maybe you're sitting in a mushroom with a glass cap or something. Or, a huge installation, wall installation, window installation at an airport or something like that. And I have a freestanding sculpture that I made for a customer that I really like. I would like to pursue that kind of design more and maybe work that into either a gallery series or into an exhibition series or even a giant freestanding piece out in a park.
And so the metal in which you expect to display your glass is going to be provided by?
My wonderful husband, who is, anytime I say, honey, would you like to do this? Or one day I came home and said, honey, would you like to take up welding? He said, sure.
And so he
would build it for me. I could design it, he builds it, and he loves doing it. He doesn't like being under a time constraint. If it has to be done in 3 weeks, that's never great. He likes to work kind of when he's in the creative mood. But yeah, he can fabricate anything. He's wonderful. I think we're a really good pair. I come up with the ideas, and then he comes up with an engineering way to make it happen and make it safe and make it structurally sound, and then we build it.
Awesome. I can't wait to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I know. I have to find, it's in the works.
So where do you see the glass art industry heading at this point in time? What do you think?
Well, I think teaching, learning, I think people are very hungry to learn, which is always good. I think the community is really strong, even though we're really dispersed. And I think the internet has brought us together where we otherwise never would have been. So I think that's what's keeping us strong, because there used to be tons of retail outlets where people could get materials, get supplies, get inspiration, have a community that are no longer there. So they're finding it online through Facebook groups and by sharing pictures and sharing stories. So I think I think that's really helping. I think it's making us really strong and giving us a good comeback. So I'm really optimistic about the future of glass in general and fused glass, because fused glass draws people who aren't necessarily glass people or artistic people, because you can just stack and fuse and come up with something awesome. It's not, where stained glass, you really did have to have some technical skills with cutting and assembling and more steps and all. So I think fused glass has actually probably revived us in some ways. So I'm real optimistic about the future and the strength of it.
And so if somebody would like to purchase your DVDs or take one of your classes, where can they find you?
www.lisavogt.net.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time. This is Marcie Davis with Glasscaster. See you next time.